All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for staying this late. My name is Matt Olfat, and as Dean Berger said, I'll be talking to you today about engineering new ways of educating entrepreneurs. So, don't have as much time this time, so I'm going to really fly through this. Quick 40,000 feet view of what I'm about to tell you today. First off, entrepreneurship is taught today as a very linear endeavor. I have an idea, make a business plan, finance, market, and then you either make it or you don't. This is not so effective, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to introduce a new view of entrepreneurship, which is a little bit more network-oriented. And then I'm going to apply a theory of learning that was developed by a French child psychologist in the 50s, Jean Piaget, to how this type of entrepreneurship can be taught. And from that, I'm going to suggest an iterative case study format. So, whoops. Maybe I should actually start the slideshow. Okay. So, I'm sure many of you have seen this before. This is called the Lean Startup Canvas, and it's the bread and butter of entrepreneurship programs as they are today, because it allows you to create a business plan very quickly. And so it kind of serves the purpose of showing that these programs are somewhat linear, because once you fill this out and then you learn how to get some financing and present and whatnot, then that's it. And so this is used a lot in business programs and MBA programs, and so it would make sense that these entrepreneurship majors and MBAs would be better at entrepreneurship than people who have not gone through this process. However, identified a data mining company would beg to differ. In fact, there has been a dichotomy in success, and Mr. Crutchfield mentioned this earlier, which I thought was very interesting. Especially in terms of advanced degrees, those with advanced technical degrees are 3 times more likely to be successful as CEOs than those with MBAs. And even on the undergrad level, the entrepreneurship education that we have right now isn't really helping out. Now, 13% of Americans are involved in entrepreneurship, so this is a pretty big deal. And so the question is, why is this the case? Sorry, these numbers are, the 13% is according to Forbes. And so I looked at how people view entrepreneurship today. I mentioned earlier that to get from point A to point B, you go idea, business plan, financing, and then either success or failure. But I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, where your idea should fit into society, and that should affect your business plan. And then once you have your product, you should go back and forth between how it impacts society and how society impacts your product. Basically, there's a complicated network here, which means that there's an entirely new type of logic that students have to learn to be able to understand this system well. And so Piaget, who was originally looking at how children learn to think, thought that learning occurred in levels. That you would start with your a priori knowledge, and you'd have some experience that disrupted this knowledge, and then you'd adjust your knowledge to account for this experience. And after that, you go from level N of knowledge to level N plus 1. And so applying that to entrepreneurship, we can say that since there's a new network, you have to learn all the different aspects of this network, but you can't do that all at one time. It has to be iterative, because you might learn one thing at a time, how one aspect of the network works at a time, and not everybody learns at the same rate or the same things at the same time. So the problems with current entrepreneurship education, it's housed in business schools, so it has a very management perspective to it. You're very focused on financing and marketing with not enough action. Even when action is required, there's not enough of a systemic thought process. You're not thinking about society. You're just thinking about, all right, well, how can I get this financed and out the door now so that I can sell it in a year or two and make a lot of money? But even when higher levels of thinking are required, there's not enough iteration. You do this once, and then you're done. You might get lucky and do things right, but you may not understand the system, which is the goal of education. I'm sure everybody here knows that. And so this leads me to my recommendation, where I believe that case studies are the best format of teaching entrepreneurship. One, because they're so malleable. You can really modify them as a teacher to get your point across to your students. You can have different types of case studies that teach different aspects of a system. And you can focus them more on a socio-technical analysis of a certain context, and you can give a bunch of different contexts. So students don't learn to operate in one context, they learn to operate in all situations. Also, they're quick, so you can do iterative case studies. You can do many different ones so that you actually get a chance to try, you know, an example in, I don't know, like developing a technology company versus putting together a restaurant and whatnot. And so I'm getting the sign that it's time for me to stop. But thank you so much for your attention. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but no, all right.